Good afternoon, everyone. Today we are going to discuss about the topic epicenter. So let us know what is epicenter and the origin of epicenter. Epicenter is a phenomena that obtains from an earthquake. Earthquakes are usually caused when rocks underground suddenly break along a fault. This sudden release of energy causes the seismic waves that makes the ground shake. Generally, this sudden release of energy which has produced the seismic waves are categorized into some specific types, like the waves which are generated at the focus point are called as the body waves, and the waves which are reaching the surface are called as the surface waves. Well, coming to the concept of epicenter. Epicenter is a place on the surface of the earth, or it can also be considered as a point. Epicenter is a point on the surface of the earth where it is nearer to the focus point. The focus point can also be called as a hypocenter. So by this we can conclude that epicenter is a point which is nearer to the hypocenter. What is hypocenter? The spot underground where the rocks break is called as a focus of the earthquake. As just now we have discussed, focus is nothing but the hypocenter. The place exactly right above the focus on the top of the ground. Whereas it comes to the displacement from the focus to the surface of the earth, that particular point is to be considered as epicenter. When two blocks of rocks or two plates are rubbing against each other, they stick a little. They don't just slide smoothly. The rocks catch on each other. The rocks are still pushing against each other but not moving. After a while, the rocks break because of all pressure that's built up. When the rocks break, the earthquake occurs. During the earthquake and afterward, the plates or blocks of the rock start moving, and they continue to move until they get stuck again. So, the spot where the rocks break inside the ground are called, it is known as the focus. Okay, to understand this concept briefly, let us try a little experiment. Just take a block of foam rubber and break it into half. Put the pieces on a smooth table. Put the roughest edge of the foam rubber pieces together. While pushing the two pieces together lightly, push one piece away from you along the tabletop while pulling the other piece towards you. See how they stick. Keep pushing and pulling smoothly. Soon a little bit of foam rubber along the crack will break and the two pieces will suddenly slip each other. That sudden break of the foam rubber is the earthquake. That's just what happens along a strike slip fault. Earthquake like seismic waves can also be caused by explosions underground. These explosions may be set off to break the rock while making tunnels of roads, railroads, subways, or mines. These explosions, however, don't cause very strong seismic waves. You may not feel them. Sometimes, seismic waves occur when the roof or walls of mines collapse. These can sometimes be felt by the people near the mine. The largest underground explosions from tests of nuclear warheads can create seismic waves very much like large earthquakes. This fact has been exploited as a mean to enforce the global nuclear test ban. Because no nuclear warhead can to be detonated on Earth without producing such seismic waves. So, let us discuss the type of waves that are generated at the focus point. Focus and epicenter. Just now we have discussed focus, the actual location where the fault movement begins. Generally, when an earthquake occurs, the fault doesn't occur on the surface of the earth. The fault occurs inside the surface of the earth. Almost every earthquake has its focus below the earth's surface. Epicenter is the point on land which is nearer to the focus point. So, these are the examples of the seismic waves. You are seeing the P wave and S wave. P is generally denoted as a primary wave, S is generally denoted as a secondary wave. P, which causes undisturbed medium, means whenever the focus exhibits energy, the movement of the particle is in the direction of energy itself, in the direction of force. So that's why it is called as P wave, primary waves. These primary waves go through soil or some particles which are aligned one after the other. These primary waves forms compressions and rarefactions. Whereas when we are coming to the secondary waves, the particle motion is perpendicular to the motion of force. Like these particles are arranged side by side, means the particle force means the force obtained by the particle and the output motion is driven perpendicular to the applied force, perpendicular to the direction of the applied force. Whereas if we consider there are three major axes in the medium, x, y and z. So we find two types of secondary waves. For example, let us assume the force has been occurred from the x in the direction of x, and there can be two possible ways for it to be perpendicular to the direction of force. One is the waves, the bodies, the propagation of the bodies in the direction perpendicular in the y-axis direction, or the propagation of bodies in the direction perpendicular z-axis. So secondary waves can have two types of particle motion, and the D and the other waves are the Rayleigh waves, where we find the circular motion of the particle, and the love wave. Love wave gives the 45-degree motion. It's a slant motion. If the force applied is straight but the motion is slant. And the most dangerous wave is the Rayleigh wave, and most of the Rayleigh waves are observed at the surface of the earth. Initially, primary wave is considered to be the first wave experienced when energy is emitted, and the next wave would be the secondary wave. Secondary two types of waves, and the love wave and the Rayleigh wave are seen at the surface of the earth, whereas the propagation direction will cause some angular or rotatory motion, where when it is come to the rotatory motion we consider the Rayleigh wave. When it comes to the acute angle motion we come to the love wave. See, the above GIF describes how the earthquake occurs, whereas down is the focus part. This down is the focus part, and the waves are traveling through inside the surface of earth. When there are no rocks it goes into the primary wave, but when we find any rocks in the surface, because we find many rocks in the underground, so due to the collision of these rocks, due to the collision of the energy waves with these rocks, we find secondary waves. So first, primary waves are named because these are the first waves that come when the energy is emitted, and the secondary waves are those waves which are emitted when the rock particles are blocking the way to the surface of earth. See, the best example for the primary and secondary wave is, primary waves are compression waves, just like a spring which has compressions and rarefactions, whereas the hand motion is considered as the motion of energy. And in the secondary wave, you can see the hand motion is upward, but the waves are perpendicular. the waves or the direction of the propagation of the body is perpendicular to the applied force. See, into this knowledge, there are many types of earthquakes. Some earthquakes occur at the mantle, some earthquakes occur at crust, some earthquakes occur at core. But only some of the earthquakes are able to reach the surface of Earth. Mostly the earthquakes which occur at the crust are able to reach the surface of Earth. And when it comes to the point of epicenter, the focus point or the hypocenter point can also be described as a fault point because it is the point from where the propagation of energy has been started. Due to the propagation of energy, we are able to see different types of waves such as primary, secondary, Rayleigh and Love waves. And Rayleigh and Love, the most dangerous waves, are being seen at the surface of the earth. There is no rule or no need that the fault occurred area is nearer to the fault occurred area on the surface of earth. The fault at the underground and the fault at the surface of earth differ, means they may be at a distant place. That distance is calculated with the help of epicenter. The distance from the epicenter to the fault occurred on the surface of earth can be considered as the displacement of the fault. So this is the discussion about the epicenter, whereas the main important concepts to be discussed while knowing about the epicenter is seismic waves. Yeah, the seismic waves, the waves which have been discussed, P wave, S wave and Rayleigh wave and Love wave. These waves are discovered with the help of seismographs. Seismograph is a type of technique which is used to describe the seismic wave patterns of the underground earth, by which we can determine the effect of earthquake on the surface of earth. See, in the image you can see the point of focus. From the focus, the energy has been released in all the directions. But the fault has been occurred, the fault scrap, you can see the fault scrap which is away from the focus and also away from the epicenter. By this we can understand the distance between the focus and the fault. P wave are the undisturbed medium. P wave are the boosters. Initially saying these are the boosters. Like if the energy is coming and the compressions and refractions occurring will boost the energy wave and it moves further. The motion of P wave will make it move further with a high velocity or high acceleration. Moreover, when it comes to the S wave, the particle motion slowly describes that some of the acceleration has been detonated over there. When it comes to the Rayleigh wave, the particle motion is circular. This is because of the wavefronts that occurring at a distant. Means Rayleigh waves are that waves which are mostly seen at the surface of Earth, which means they are at a distance from the focus. So while they are traveling, due to occurring of the primary and as well as the secondary waves, the other wave generation called as Rayleigh wave or Love wave is generated based upon the intensity that have been observed at the primary and the secondary waves. Hmm. Here, the fault occurred is very near, very close to the epicenter. By this, we can describe the primary and secondary wave characteristics underground. The seismographs helps us to understand the characteristics of the waves, energy waves propagated and moving from the focus to the surface of the earth. Primary waves are like compressions and rarefactions, and secondary waves are like shear waves. Focus. Focus is a point which has to be remembered while we are going to the concept of epicenter. Epicenter is a concept which mainly focus on the focus point or the hypocenter, because epicenter is a place which is nearer to the focus. Means the point of epicenter of the earthquake is determined only if we know the focus of the earthquake. The focus point is calculated with the help of seismographs and other technological instrumentation that has been implemented in the recognition of the earthquakes. Based on that, we can determine the epicenter. Thank you, everyone.